boys and girls, it's Angie here. Today we're going to read the story, The Elves and the Shoemaker, and this story has been specially requested by Lila. So Lila, I hope you enjoy it. Let's begin. Oh, there's the village where the shoemaker lives. Oh, there's the title of the story again. And here's where we begin our story. This is the shoemaker. And a shoemaker, boys and girls, makes shoes. In the olden days, shoemakers like this made all the shoes, but nowadays our shoes are made in factories, and not very many people make them by hand like this shoemaker is doing. The story says, late one night a shoemaker sat, cutting his leather with a snip, snip, snap, watched by his wife and watched by his cat. I'll sew them tomorrow, the shoemaker said. He went to bed hungry. There was no bread. The cupboard was bare. Nothing there. So this shoemaker recently hasn't been selling very many of his shoes, so he's very poor, which means he doesn't have much money, and he can't afford to buy food to have in their cupboard. So he's gone to bed with no dinner. He's very hungry. He's saying no supper tonight. In the morning, when he opened his eyes, there on the bench was a big surprise. Someone had stitched the shoes. But who? Because if you remember, when he went to bed, there weren't any shoes made, just bits of leather that had been cut out. But now, look, shoes have been made during the night. The shoemaker blinked and scratched his head. What teeny tiny stitches, he said. Who could do a thing like that? Not me, meowed the cat. He sold the shoes for a very good price and bought more leather and meat and rice. They had a good supper that night. So thankfully, he had made some money and could buy some food to eat. Then he cut the leather with a snip, snip, snap. I'm ever so tired, he said to the cat. I can't stop yawning. I'll stitch these in the morning. Time for bed. So again he's left the leather on his desk there. In the morning, when he opened his eyes, there on the bench was a bigger surprise. Four pairs of shoes had been stitched in the night. The shoemaker blinked and scratched his head. What teeny tiny stitches, he said. Who could do a thing like that? Not me, meowed the cat. Look, 4 pairs of shoes. 1, 2, 3, 4 have been stitched in the night. Customers came to the shop in queues when they heard about the beautiful shoes. They tried them on. Soon they were all gone. So what do you think if the shoemaker sold all those shoes? He's going to get lots of money, isn't he? Look, the people are paying for the shoes with all that money. So at the start of the story, he was very poor, but now he's making money from selling all these beautiful shoes that are being made in the night. And now, with all the money he'd made, the shoemaker went to the market and paid for leather in blue and green and red. He cut the leather with a snip, snip, snap, watched by his wife and watched by his cat. His wife said, now we'll see what happens to that. Next morning, when they got out of bed, they found shoes in blue and green and red. Such teeny tiny stitches, the shoemaker said. I like the blue shoes, his wife saying. From far away, when they heard the news, people came to the shop in queues. What beautiful shoes, they cried. It's hard to choose. The shoemaker sat and counted his money. He thought, isn't it funny? I'm suddenly rich. And I haven't even sewn a stitch. And he hasn't, has he? Somebody else has been making the shoes for him. the shoemaker's wife said, "We have to find whoever it is who's being so kind. Let's watch in your workshop tonight." So they left the candle burning bright, and there they hid in the dead of night. Midnight chimed. The door went creak. The mouse is scared. It's running away. Eek! Go a bit, step back a wee bit, darling. And 3 little elves came skippity-skip in with silver tools in a teeny tiny tin. But their clothes were threadbare and thin. Their silver hammers went tip-tip-tap, and they cut and they sewed with a snip, snip, snap, and the shoes were made in a flash. So that's who's been making the shoes. Elves. 1, 2, 3 little elves. When the elves had left, the shoemaker's wife said, "I've never seen in all my life 3 little elves so threadbare. I'll sew them all new clothes to wear." She sewed a tiny dress and tiny jackets and tiny tartan trousers with pockets. And the shoemaker made tiny, beautiful boots. There he is making the tiny boots. And he's saying, "Where's my thimble?" Which is something he puts on his finger to stop him pricking himself with the needle. The very next night, they left the clothes there on the bench in 3 neat rows. Then they hid themselves to watch for the elves. There they are hiding, watching the elves. When the elves found the suits and the tiny boots, they put them on and danced through the door, singing, "Shoes we'll make here no more." What beautiful suits and beautiful boots. Oh, they're so happy with their new clothes. They don't have to wear their old rags anymore. They've never seen another elf. The shoemaker stitches his shoes himself. But every day he's grateful for the dinner on his table. Look how well they're eating now. Lovely food to have for dinner. And every night to the window he creeps, for he made a promise that still he keeps. "Thank you, elves," he whispers, and then he sleeps. So he's very grateful and very thankful that the elves helped him and stopped him being poor and helped him to make some money so he and his wife could live a better life. So that story has a very happy ending because the elves are happy too with all the lovely new clothes they've got. And that's the end. I hope you enjoyed that story, boys and girls, especially Lila, who asked for me to read that one. Bye for now.